For thousands of years, the Galactic Empire believed one rule above all others. Primitive civilizations never changed history. Across millions of star systems, countless young species had risen, dreamed of greatness, and vanished beneath the Empire's unstoppable fleets. Earth was expected to become just another forgotten world. They were wrong. Far beyond the Orion Arm, inside the imperial capital of Velker Prime, thousands of senators gathered beneath a massive dome of crystal and living metal. The atmosphere was calm, almost boring. Another frontier war was nearing its end. The mighty Zereth Dominion, one of the last independent civilizations, was finally collapsing after 30 years of resistance. Supreme Fleet Commander Valen stood before the Senate. The Dominion has lost 82% of its military infrastructure. A hologram displayed hundreds of burning star systems. Our victory is inevitable. The chamber erupted in applause. Then an advisor stepped forward. My commander, there is one unusual report. Valen barely looked up. Proceed. A newly spacefaring civilization has requested permission to join the coalition defending the Dominion. Laughter echoed across the chamber. A new species? What level? Pre-FDL? The advisor shook his head. They recently developed faster-than-light travel. More laughter. One senator smiled. Name? The advisor hesitated. Humans. The massive screen displayed a small blue planet orbiting an average yellow star. Population, 11 billion. Military ranking, insignificant. Fleet estimate, less than 100 combat-capable vessels. Technology assessment, 30 generations behind imperial standards. Threat level, 0. Valen smirked. So, the children wish to play war. The Senate laughed even harder. Grant them observer status. No, another senator interrupted. Send them a warning. The official message was drafted within minutes. The Galactic Empire does not negotiate with primitive civilizations. Stay neutral or become collateral damage. Message sent. Case closed. Or so they believed. 800 light-years away. Inside Earth's United Stellar Command headquarters, silence filled the war room. The Imperial transmission had just finished playing. Around the table sat admirals, scientists, diplomats, and military leaders from every nation. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, Admiral Evelyn Ross folded her hands. So, they laughed. General Marcus Hale nodded slowly. They didn't even consider us an opponent. A young officer slammed his fist on the table. They threatened billions of civilians. They expect fear. Ross simply smiled. No, they expect history to repeat itself. She looked toward the enormous holographic map. Thousands of stars blinked across the galaxy. One region flashed red. The Zereth Dominion. Earth had been secretly observing the war for years. The Dominion wasn't evil. It simply refused imperial rule. Entire planets had been sterilized. Civilizations erased. Billions killed merely for choosing independence. Humanity had watched. Long enough. Ross looked toward the room. Status. A scientist answered. The gate project is complete. Another officer added. Teleportation network synchronized. General Hale smiled. Fleet. Ready. Production. Finished. Probability of successful deployment? 99.7%. For the first time, everyone in the room smiled. Meanwhile, across Imperial territory, long-range observatories detected something strange. Tiny gravitational distortions. They appeared, then vanished. No hyperspace signatures. No warp trails. No jump gates. Nothing. Imperial scientists dismissed them as sensor glitches. Unknown to them. Hidden beneath Earth's oceans. Inside hollowed asteroids. Within moons converted into factories. Humanity had spent 20 years building something the galaxy believed impossible. Not faster engines. Not larger weapons. Not stronger armor. Something far more dangerous. Instantaneous fleet teleportation. A technology every advanced civilization had abandoned as mathematically impossible. Human scientists never accepted impossible. Deep beneath Antarctica, an enormous circular machine larger than a city slowly awakened. Its rings began rotating. Blue energy spread through thousands of superconducting channels. Warning lights filled the chamber. Scientists watched in complete silence. The countdown appeared. Teleportation Array Alpha. Power level, 21%, 36%, 58%, 74%, 91%. The skies above Earth shimmered. Across hidden shipyards, thousands of classified warships activated simultaneously. No public announcement. No celebration. Only preparation. Admiral Ross looked through the observation window. The Empire thinks this war is already over. General Hale nodded. They're about to discover. He paused as every light inside the facility turned blue. That humanity doesn't arrive through hyperspace. We arrive instantly. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, the massive teleportation array roared to life. The vibration could be felt hundreds of kilometers away. Mountains of ancient ice trembled, while brilliant blue energy spiraled upward into the night sky. Thousands of engineers stood behind reinforced observation glass, watching history unfold. On the central display, one message flashed repeatedly. Teleportation network, stable. Fleet synchronization, 100%. Admiral Evelyn Ross stared at the countdown. Once we activate this system, she said quietly, there's no going back. General Marcus Hale folded his arms. The Empire has already made its choice. Silence filled the command center. Finally, Ross gave the order. Begin Operation Silent Horizon. Across the solar system, hidden military bases awakened simultaneously. Shipyards concealed inside the asteroid belt opened like giant mechanical flowers. Warships emerged from beneath the oceans of Europa. Titan's underground factories stopped production and launched their final completed vessels. Even the far side of Earth's moon split apart as enormous armored hangars revealed fleets that had remained invisible for decades. Humanity had hidden its strength in plain sight. Not by building one massive fleet, but by building thousands of ships across dozens of secret locations. Every vessel activated at the exact same second. The galaxy had no idea they even existed. Nearly 900 light-years away, the Zereth Dominion was dying. The defensive fleet fought desperately around the capital world of Kareth. Explosions illuminated the darkness as Imperial battleships advanced without mercy. Dominion Commander Serac watched another defense station disappear in a ball of fire. Report. His tactical officer answered with visible fear. Fourth Fleet destroyed. Our orbital shields are below 12%. Civilian evacuation has stopped. Serac closed his eyes. 30 years of war. Countless victories. None of it mattered anymore. The Empire's numbers were endless. An Imperial transmission suddenly appeared on every screen. Supreme Fleet Commander Valen smiled confidently. You fought well. But history belongs to empires. Surrender now. And perhaps a few of your people will survive. Serac looked around the bridge. No one suggested surrender. One officer whispered, "We stay." Another nodded. "We finish this together." Serac smiled proudly. Then let history remember we never bowed. The remaining Dominion ships accelerated toward the Imperial Armada for one final attack. At that exact moment, something impossible happened. Not one jump signature. Not one warp tunnel. Not one hyperspace corridor. Nothing. Space itself. Thousands of tiny blue lights appeared across the battlefield. Imperial sensor operators frowned. What are those? Another officer scanned the readings. No vessels detected. They're empty coordinates. Commander Valen narrowed his eyes. Magnify. The blue lights expanded. 1 became 10. 10 became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. Then every light exploded outward into enormous circles of glowing energy. The battlefield fell silent. Dominion ships stopped firing. Imperial weapons froze. Even automated defense systems paused as reality itself distorted. The first human battleship simply appeared. No arrival. No acceleration. 1 second, empty space. The next, a colossal black warship over 4 kilometers long stood between the Empire and the Dominion. Then another appeared. And another. Then 50. Then 200. Then 1,000. Within less than 5 seconds, an entire fleet materialized from nothing. Sensor alarms screamed across every Imperial vessel. Unknown contacts. Impossible energy readings. No hyperspace residue. They didn't jump. Commander Valen stood in disbelief. How many ships? The tactical officer's voice shook. Still counting. The display continued updating. 1,500. 2,800. 4,600. The numbers refused to stop. Dominion Commander Serac stared silently through his bridge window. His communications officer whispered, "Sir, I think they came for us." On board the human flagship HMS Resolute, Admiral Ross calmly surveyed the battlefield. Rows of holographic displays filled the bridge. Every Imperial vessel was marked in red, while the battered Dominion fleet glowed in blue. Her crew remained perfectly composed. No cheering. No celebration. Only focus. Fleet status. All 12 expeditionary groups have arrived successfully. Teleportation accuracy? 99.98%. Weapons? Charged. General Hale smiled slightly. The Empire wanted to teach humanity a lesson. Ross nodded. Open a channel. Moments later, every Imperial battleship received a single transmission. Commander Valen answered immediately, still unable to comprehend what he was seeing. "How did you get here?" Ross looked directly into the camera. "We warned no one because you never intended to listen." Valen regained his composure. "It doesn't matter. You may have brought more ships than expected, but you're still centuries behind Imperial technology." Ross gave a faint smile. "You've made one fatal mistake." Valen frowned. "What mistake?" Ross's answer echoed across the battlefield. "You counted our ships. You never asked what they're capable of." At that exact moment, every human warship powered its main weapons. The darkness of space turned blue. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Empire felt fear. Blue light spread across the battlefield as thousands of human warships charged their primary weapons. The energy signatures were unlike anything the Imperial sensors had ever recorded. There were no antimatter fluctuations. No plasma buildup. No dark matter compression. Just an impossible concentration of gravitational energy wrapped inside fields the Empire couldn't identify. Imperial sensor officers exchanged nervous looks. "Commander, we don't recognize the weapon system." Supreme Fleet Commander Valen frowned. "Analyze it." "We're trying, sir." Seconds passed. Then the Chief Science Officer turned pale. "That's impossible." "What is it?" "The energy isn't being generated." Valen's expression hardened. "Explain." The officer swallowed. "It's being borrowed." Silence. "Borrowed? From where?" The scientist zoomed out the tactical map. Hundreds of tiny energy streams stretched across space, all leading far beyond the battlefield. Beyond nearby stars. Beyond the sector itself. Every human ship was drawing power from a galaxy-wide quantum energy network. Their reactors weren't supplying the weapons. Their entire civilization was. Valen whispered, "No fleet should possess that kind of infrastructure." Aboard the HMS Resolute, Admiral Ross stood calmly. "Target priorities?" An AI answered instantly. "Enemy command ships. Carrier formations. Heavy siege platforms. Civilian-safe firing solutions confirmed." Ross nodded. "No unnecessary casualties. We're here to stop a war. Not become monsters." General Hale smiled. "Humanity remembers what happens when powerful civilizations forget mercy." Ross raised her hand. "All fleets." A second of silence filled every bridge. Fire. There was no thunder. No massive explosion. Instead, thousands of thin blue beams crossed the battlefield at the speed of light. Each beam struck with unbelievable precision. Imperial officers waited for shields to absorb the impact. They never did. The beams ignored them completely. The Empire's strongest shield technology simply didn't exist to the human weapons. One Imperial battleship suddenly lost all power. Its engines shut down. Its weapons went silent. Life support remained active. The ship drifted helplessly through space. Another carrier froze completely. Every computer inside had been disabled without a single explosion. Then another. And another. Entire formations became floating metal statues. Confused crews stared at dark control panels. What happened? My console is dead. Engines offline. We still have oxygen. They're disabling us. Commander Valen watched hundreds of ships disappear from his tactical display. Not destroyed. Neutralized. His tactical officer shouted, "We've lost 17% of the fleet." In 30 seconds, the Dominion fleet watched in stunned silence. Commander Serac couldn't believe his eyes. "They're not killing them." His weapons officer nodded. "They're surgically removing their ability to fight." One of his advisors whispered, "I've never seen anything like this." Serac looked toward the enormous human formation. "Neither has the galaxy." Commander Valen slammed his fist onto the command console. "Enough. All fleets advance. Overwhelm them with numbers." Within moments, nearly 8,000 Imperial warships accelerated toward the human line. Millions of missiles filled space. Particle lances ignited. Planet-cracking rail cannons fired together. The darkness vanished beneath a storm of firepower. Dominion officers closed their eyes. No fleet could survive that. Not even these mysterious humans. On the bridge of the Resolute, nobody panicked. Ross calmly asked, "Defense status?" "Quantum displacement shields ready." "Activate." The lead human ships shimmered. They disappeared. Not visually. Physically. Every missile passed harmlessly through empty space. Railgun rounds crossed directly through the fleet as if the ships were ghosts. Energy beams struck nothing. Imperial officers stared in disbelief. "Our weapons missed. They didn't move. Where are the impacts?" Science teams scanned frantically. Then the answer appeared. "They've shifted themselves. Less than 1 nanosecond outside normal spacetime." Commander Valen felt genuine fear for the first time in his career. "They're phasing." Impossible. No civilization has ever stabilized temporal displacement. The human fleet suddenly became solid again. This time, they attacked differently. Instead of firing massive volleys, each ship selected a single target. One precise shot. One disabled enemy. No wasted energy. No missed attacks. The battlefield became a demonstration of absolute efficiency. Imperial ships vanished from combat one after another. Command cruisers, destroyers, carriers, siege platforms, all rendered powerless within minutes. Not through overwhelming force, but through overwhelming intelligence. Back aboard the Imperial flagship, alarms echoed from every direction. "Commander, our communications network has collapsed. Navigation satellites are offline. Fleet coordination lost." Valen looked at the tactical display. The once perfect Imperial formation had dissolved into chaos. Without centralized coordination, thousands of ships began interfering with one another. Some even collided while attempting emergency maneuvers. Ross had predicted every response before the battle even began. General Hale watched the unfolding chaos. "They built an empire on superior technology." Ross quietly replied, "No. They built it on the belief that no one else could ever surpass them." She looked at the battlefield, where the once invincible Imperial fleet was now scattered and confused. That belief is about to cost them everything. At that very moment, long-range sensors detected something even larger approaching the battlefield. Not hundreds, not thousands, but tens of thousands of additional Imperial warships emerging from hyperspace. The Empire had just called in its Grand Reserve Fleet. And humanity smiled. The stars rippled as hyperspace tore open across the battlefield. One portal, then 10, then 100. The darkness of space became a sea of blazing blue rifts as the Empire's Grand Reserve fleet emerged in perfect formation. Supercarriers, Titan-class dreadnoughts, orbital siege platforms, escort cruisers stretching for thousands of kilometers. Within minutes, more than 20,000 additional Imperial warships surrounded the battlefield. The Dominion's bridge fell silent. Commander Serac stared at the tactical display. "They've brought everything." One of his officers lowered his head. "We were celebrating too early." Across the bridge, fear slowly returned. Even the incredible human fleet couldn't possibly defeat numbers like these. On the Imperial flagship, Commander Valen finally allowed himself a smile. The confidence that had vanished moments ago returned. "Our reserves have arrived." He looked toward the human formation. "You surprised us. You embarrassed us. But now, this war ends?" His communications officer nodded. "The Grand Fleet is awaiting your command." Valen stood proudly. "All formations advance. Crush them." Thousands of Imperial engines ignited simultaneously. The largest armada assembled in over 3 centuries surged toward the human line. Aboard the HNS Resolute, Admiral Evelyn Ross didn't move. She simply watched the growing wall of enemy ships. General Marcus Hale looked at the tactical map. "They're committing every reserve they have." Ross nodded calmly. "Exactly as predicted." The operations officer turned around. "Admiral, should we initiate Phase 2? Ross smiled. "It's time. Open a fleet-wide channel." Within seconds, every human captain received the same message. Protocol Atlas is now authorized. No cheers. No dramatic speeches. Only one calm reply echoed back from thousands of ships. "Acknowledged." Deep beneath Earth's surface, the teleportation array Alpha continued drawing unimaginable amounts of energy. Scientists monitored thousands of quantum calculations every second. Suddenly, one engineer looked up. "Admiral Ross has activated Atlas." The lead physicist took a slow breath. "Then history changes today." He pressed a single authorization key. Around the solar system, hidden facilities awakened. Ancient-looking rings buried beneath Mercury activated. Massive stations orbiting Jupiter began spinning. Gigantic structures concealed inside Saturn's rings lit up one by one. Humanity had never built one teleportation array. It had secretly built an entire network. Back on the battlefield, Imperial sensors suddenly erupted with warnings. "Commander!" Massive spatial distortion detected. Valen frowned. "Where?" The officer stared at his display in disbelief. "Everywhere." Across an area spanning millions of kilometers, space itself shimmered. The stars seemed to bend. Gravity fluctuated wildly. The battlefield became eerily quiet. Even experienced Imperial veterans felt uneasy. The impossible happened again. Not one fleet. Not two. Hundreds of brilliant blue circles appeared across the void. Valen whispered, "No." One by one, new human fleets materialized. Fresh battleships. Fresh carriers. Fresh dreadnoughts. Entire formations emerged in flawless order. The tactical display updated so quickly it could barely keep pace. 12,000 human ships. 18,000. 31,000. 47,000. The numbers continued climbing. Imperial officers watched in horror. They're teleporting reinforcements directly into combat. There's no hyperspace delay. No supply lines. They're appearing instantly. Within less than a minute, humanity had doubled, then tripled, its strength. Commander Serac stood speechless. One of his officers whispered, "I thought Earth only had one fleet." Serac slowly smiled. So did the Empire. Valen refused to surrender his confidence. "They still bleed. Concentrate fire." Thousands of Imperial warships unleashed everything they had. The void exploded into rivers of plasma and antimatter. This time, several human ships were struck. Explosions flashed across their armored hulls. For the first time, damage reports appeared on the Resolute. The bridge officer called out, 3 destroyers disabled." One cruiser heavily damaged. General Hale looked toward Ross. "We're taking losses." Ross nodded solemnly. "They're brave soldiers. We don't waste their sacrifice." She turned toward the fleet commander beside her. "Execute Atlas." Across every human warship, a calm AI voice echoed. "Quantum recall authorized." Before the Empire could fire another volley, every damaged human vessel vanished. Not destroyed. Not retreating through hyperspace. Simply gone. A heartbeat later, those same ships reappeared near Earth's orbital shipyards. Robotic repair docks surrounded them instantly. Advanced nanoforges began rebuilding damaged armor within seconds. Fresh crews boarded replacement vessels. Less than 3 minutes later, the repaired ships disappeared once more. Back on the battlefield, they reappeared in their original formations as if they had never left. Imperial sensor officers were frozen in disbelief. They're rotating damaged ships out of combat and returning them almost immediately. Valen felt his hands tremble. That's impossible. No military can repair an active fleet during a battle. His chief strategist quietly answered, "Not unless the battlefield is connected directly to their entire industrial network." Valen finally understood the truth. The humans weren't fighting with a fleet. They were fighting with the full strength of their civilization. And that civilization had turned distance itself into a meaningless concept. As the Imperial formation faltered, long-range sensors detected another alarming signal. A colossal energy surge was building behind the human lines. It dwarfed every weapon seen so far. The tactical AI estimated its output in one chilling sentence. Unknown human weapon charging. Estimated power, planetary scale. For the first time in galactic history, the Empire wondered if it had just declared war on the wrong species. A deep silence settled across the battlefield. Even with tens of thousands of warships exchanging fire, every sensor in the sector focused on one terrifying reading. Behind the human fleet, space itself began to glow. A sphere of blue-white energy expanded slowly, growing larger than a moon. Imperial computers struggled to identify it. Finally, the tactical AI displayed a single warning. Unknown object. Estimated diameter, 310 kilometers. Energy output, beyond classified Imperial limits. Commander Valen stared at the screen. "What is that?" No one answered. Because no one knew. Aboard the HNS Resolute, Admiral Evelyn Ross looked toward the massive sphere with quiet respect. General Marcus Hale stood beside her. "The beacon is online." Ross nodded. "Final authorization?" "Confirmed." She took a slow breath. "Broadcast on every frequency." Within seconds, every military vessel in the battle, Imperial, Dominion, and human, received the same transmission. Ross appeared on every screen. "The Galactic Empire. Today is not the day humanity conquers you." Confused silence followed. She continued, "We did not come to destroy civilizations. We came to stop one from destroying others." Commander Valen frowned. "If that's true, then why build a weapon powerful enough to erase planets?" Ross shook her head. "Because you assumed every great weapon exists to kill. The beacon was never designed for destruction." Across the battlefield, the enormous sphere released a pulse of shimmering blue light. It expanded faster than any weapon ever recorded. Imperial captains braced for impact. Some even closed their eyes. The pulse swept through every ship in seconds. Nothing exploded. Nothing burned. No vessel was destroyed. Instead, alarms echoed across the Imperial fleet. Weapons offline. Hyperspace drives disabled. Targeting systems disconnected. Our reactors are still running, but every offensive system has shut down. One by one, over 20,000 Imperial warships lost the ability to fight. Their life support remained active. Their engines still functioned at low power. Their crews were safe. But the war was over. The beacon had emitted a quantum synchronization wave that temporarily disabled every weapon system built on Imperial military technology. Human ships were unaffected. Dominion ships were unaffected. Only the Empire's combat network had been neutralized. General Hale smiled. We didn't beat them with bigger guns. We beat them by understanding how they built theirs. Commander Valen stood motionless. His fleet, the greatest military force in the galaxy, had been defeated without annihilation. His communications officer whispered, "Commander, they're requesting your surrender." For a long moment, Valen said nothing. Then he opened a direct channel to Admiral Ross. "You could have destroyed us." Ross answered calmly, "Yes. Why didn't you?" She looked directly into the camera. "Because if we become what we fought against, then this victory means nothing." Those words echoed across every ship in the sector. Imperial officers lowered their heads. Even Dominion commanders watched in silence. Hours later, representatives of the Empire and the Dominion met aboard a neutral station under human protection. For the first time in centuries, the Empire signed a ceasefire instead of a conquest order. Occupied worlds were released. Blockades ended. Prisoners were returned home. Entire star systems celebrated as the war finally came to an end. The conflict that had lasted 30 years was over, not because one side had been exterminated, but because one civilization had refused to repeat history's mistakes. Months later, the Galactic Senate gathered once again beneath the crystal dome of Velker Prime. This time, there was no laughter, no arrogance, only quiet anticipation. A single figure entered the chamber. Admiral Evelyn Ross. Every senator stood, not out of fear, out of respect. The same senator who had once mocked humanity spoke first. "We believed your people were primitive." Ross smiled faintly. "You judged us by how recently we reached the stars. You never asked how we solved our problems." The senator lowered his head. "What is humanity's greatest weapon?" Ross looked through the transparent dome toward the countless stars. "Our greatest weapon isn't teleportation. It isn't our fleets. It isn't the beacon." She paused. "It's that humans never accept the words. That's impossible." Silence filled the chamber. Because every civilization present now understood the truth. The Empire had spent thousands of years perfecting the technology it already possessed. Humanity had spent those same years asking questions no one else dared to ask. That single difference had changed the fate of the galaxy. Years later, history books would remember this battle by many names. The day the Empire fell. The war that ended without genocide. But one title became legendary across every known star system. The day humanity didn't arrive through hyperspace. They arrived instantly. And from that day forward, whenever an arrogant empire dismissed a young civilization as weak, someone would quietly remind them of old Earth's lesson. Never laugh at humans. They might already be standing behind you.